Hello, I'm Lisa Flood.
And I'm Jason Angelette, and welcome to Faith and Marriage Today.
Jason and I are so excited about our show today because, you know, for everything we do with Faith and Marriage Today, we want to empower families to really live their faith. And our guest today, Wes Cannon, is here to tell us about home enthronement to the Sacred Heart of Jesus and Immaculate Heart of Mary. Wes, we have a lot we want to break open with you, but first of all, how does a busy husband, businessman, father of 4, get involved with spreading the message of making Jesus the king of your home? How'd that happen, Wes?
Wow.
Great question.
It's a good question. You know, I attended a ceremony of the Sacred Heart of Jesus at a friend of mine's house in Kenner. He invited me. I wasn't sure what it was. And it was such a beautiful ceremony. I'll call it a house blessing. That I said, you know, I came home, I told my wife, I was like, our kids were very young at the time. In fact, we only had 2 kids at the time. I said, I want to do this, you know, I'm going to go we were parishioners at Mater Della Rosa on Carrollton. And I said, let me go talk to Father Herb. And I go talk to Father Herb Kiff, and he just starts laughing. And I was like, what? He said, man, you know, last night I was closing up the church and I felt compelled to kneel in front of the Sacred Heart of Jesus. And he's like, I was tired. I was like, what now? You know, what do you need from me? And he says, I want you to promote my Sacred Heart. And he said, you know, how? What do you know, I don't know anybody. He was new to the parish. And he goes, and here you are a day later telling me you want to promote the Sacred Heart of Jesus. And that's when I was like, okay, I guess I'm in this thing, you know? And so from there, it kind of rolled into an apostolate that has grown over the years. You know, Father Herb started it at St. Rita. Anne-Marie Abity, who's very involved still to this day, has updated all the materials. She's on the board, and might be the president now of the Sacred Heart Apostolate based out of Knoxville. I really got in front of the right people at the right time.
That's what God will do.
That's exactly right.
Wes, you can't make this up. I told you this, but I don't know if I told you, Jason. So when our kids, our older 2 were babies, like the middle one was in my arms, Father Herb enthroned our home.
Wow.
When he was at St. Peter Parish on the North Shore.
That's a small world.
It's a beautiful apostolate.
It is.
Okay, so when we're talking about home enthronement, making Jesus the king of your home, first of all, what is the history? Like, where does this even come from?
Yeah, so, all right, the Sacred Heart of Jesus, you could, you know, go back to love and mercy in the New Testament, the Middle Ages, St. Gertrude, etc. You could spend a lot of time just on the Sacred Heart of Jesus, but the home enthronement of the Sacred Heart of Jesus, you cannot talk about without talking about Jesus appearing to St. Margaret Mary Alacoque 500 plus years ago. And what transpired there, where Jesus actually showed the image of his Sacred Heart. Wow. You know, the burning love for us, the crucifix, his ultimate sacrifice, the thorns, his pain when we sin. He appeared to her so many times that she referred to him sometimes as her spiritual advisor. I mean, it's unreal. And then so when you fast forward to early 1900s, you meet Father Matteo Crawley, who's a Peruvian, and he was a member of the congregation of the Sacred Heart of Jesus, Immaculate Heart of Mary, and he had a huge devotion to the Heart of Jesus. And he ended up in Père-le-Monial, where Jesus appeared to St. Margaret Mary Alacoque, and just created this devotion based on the 12 promises that Jesus promised those who admired his Sacred Heart of Jesus. And he created this blessing that is not only a home blessing, but kind of an evangelization of the domestic church that we can talk about more.
No, let's jump right into that. So I mean, again, because obviously it affected you. It was used, this opportunity, to more than just bless the home, this enthronement, this devotion to the Sacred Heart. Your friend opened up the doors for your family to come in. Right. And how much of an impact that made for y'all.
Yeah.
Okay, so talk about that.
So, I learned at that blessing that, this is something that my grandparents did. It was a traditional Catholic blessing that, when Father Mateo died in 1960, it kind of started to die as well. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to bring back.
Not anymore, right, Wes?
Yeah, it's here. It's here. And we are taking this exact blessing and enthroning homes all around New Orleans, the metropolitan area, with multiple parishes, multiple teams. We have teams of 2 that are trained to bless these homes, and the stories and the blessings that are coming out of this are just unbelievable.
I was thinking when you said that about, this isn't new, right? This has been going on for a while, but I feel like in the 60s, things got really confusing in the church and the people and the faithful, and kind of throwing away traditions and objects and statues and things like that because we didn't know exactly or whatever. And this idea that we needed to kind of get rid of the old. And it's like we threw away a lot of beautiful things. We've forgotten some amazing treasures. It's almost like you hear stories of like these renovations in these churches, and they take down these walls, and there's this beautiful stained glass window behind us. Like, why did we cover this up? It's like it's like going into these old houses, and there's carpet, and you pull up the carpet, and there's these beautiful solid wood oak floors, or whatever like that. And you're like, why were we covering this up with shag carpet? Like, what were we thinking? But like, I think we've forgotten some of the great treasures that our families need now more than ever. Like, I can't think of a time right now where marriage and family is as under attack as it is now. And so much more the need for us to go to the Sacred Heart. And then talk about, I want to hear more about that, your response to that, and also those promises that were given to Saint Margaret Mary Alacoque, because there's something about hearing specifically like, what is this going to do for us? I remember, sometimes I like Peter, when Jesus is like, everybody who gives up lands and things on my name, all this stuff. And then Peter's like, well, we've done that. What do we get? Kind of a thing. Like, it's kind of like, there's this kind of a part of like, well, what's in it for us? Like, if we're going to do this, like, we have a lot of busy things. We have a lot of stuff going on. We're busy. Right. Like, make it worth my while. Why should I do this? Right. Type of thing.
So I feel like the hedge of protection that you feel around your home once this is done is something that this world needs. You look at the disasters that are happening right now, in Asheville and Florida and such, to have that protection around you and your home and your family, and to be able to, when the power's out, to go to an altar that where your family gathers to pray and have that sense of security is it's just immeasurable.
To that comment, so we do retreats at the St. Joseph Abbey, and people have been praying on those grounds for over 100 years, right? And you cross this little bridge over the Bogafalaya river right there, the little river right there, and people will tell me without even asking, they'll just say, I crossed the bridge and I just feel like there was peace. Yeah, wow. And I feel like we've made our homes, we've allowed so much in that we don't find peace. It's like we need safe spaces outside of our homes because we don't feel safe in our own homes. And I like what you said, to be able to kind of build this like hedge of protection that we need, our families need, our kids need, to have this sacred space that we can find that peace, that it's, when people come into our home, I would love for them to say, man, there's just a lot of peace in this house.
Yeah. Well, and you say very well, this is meant to help your home become another Bethany.
Yes.
And to evangelize.
Yeah, my wife is the other member of my team, and that's one thing that she likes to talk about is, when Jesus wanted to go hang out with his buddies, he went to Bethany. He went to hang out with Martha, Mary, and Lazarus. But they treated him like a king, but also as their friend. Yeah. And so we're trying to do that with the Sacred Heart Enthronement, is to create a Bethany in your home.
Yeah.
You know,
it's great. We'll spend so much money on couches and rugs and furnishings, and we'll get all the essential oils floating in the air. We'll try to do all these things, but we're forgetting the spiritual strength and power that makes our house truly a home, which is the Lord.
Well, and to that point, let's talk about what are some of the miracles you've seen connected to the promises that come from making Jesus the king of your home.
Yeah, so you know, when the teams are trained and somebody's maybe interested in throwing their home, we have an initial meeting to kind of explain the history, pick dates, etc. And during that meeting, we read the 12 promises that Jesus gave to St. Margaret Mary and to those who adore Sacred Heart, and those promises cause a lot of dialogue, you know, to be had. For example, if you read, I think it's the second one.
I will establish peace in their families.
Correct, because a lot of families want this because they're maybe going through a separation. Maybe there's problems with the kids, etc. Number 7, tepid souls shall become fervent. I think the number one prayer that we're getting from these parents is their kids have left the church.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And they're trying to get them back. What can they do to get them back? And the best is when we enthrone a home and we hear years later, yeah, you know, my husband came back to the church, or my children back to the church, and you're like, 12 promises, you know.
I think of, like, you know, we have these desires and we ask, Lord, please answer these prayers. We need to pray. Prayers of petition are powerful, but the Lord's calling us to action, right? Like, it's the Spirit, and then it's the action that proceeds, that follows the action, that follows the Spirit.
You know, it's so funny you say that, because there is some action involved to prepare your home for this.
Yes.
You know, we talked about that. During that initial meeting, we not only pick dates and go through the history, but we also talk about a novena.
Yeah.
And the novena, like Father Herb says, is like rolling out the red carpet for Jesus.
Yeah,
You're preparing your home for this. And some families, we kind of lose right there. There might be some lukewarm folks in the family, and they're like, oh, novena, I'm out, you know. But that's part of it. This is what Father Mateo wanted. This is how we prepare the home. Now, the novena is a little different. The first 7 days, you say the rosary. There's some things to recite. The last 2 days, you read some scripture. And it also do with the domestic church, the domestic home, Zacchaeus, Bethany, really, really good stuff in there. And then after the novena is over, you set your date, and then your home enthronement ceremony begins, which is about...
You don't need a priest for this. Let's talk about this, because this has been a big issue.
Yeah, so some priests think that they need to be present, and so they maybe get a little nervous. I'm busy, etc.
Right.
This is lay people. You know, this is how Father Mateo designed it, and this is what, you know, St. Pius told Father Mateo. He said, in the name of the church, I command you to give the rest of your life to this work of social salvation, the sanctification of families. So his mission was to have every home enthroned in the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
He couldn't do that on his own or just with priests. It was lay people.
Yeah.
And so many times people request the deacon or the priest to be there. And so I usually have them pick, give me 3 dates that work for you, and I'll throw that out to the priest or deacon. And if those work, they're happy to come. If not, it's like, hey, let's do this anyway.
Yeah.
We're rolling, you know. So I think that's very important to mention.
You were saying dates, like are you talking about like maybe enthroning it on a particular like celebration in the church?
Yeah, or what the family wants. So we've done enthronements where it's a large family and they want to wait till our kids are in college.
Okay, I can speak to that. That's one issue, getting the kids in town.
Yeah. And so, and we've done where there's huge barbecues and they just want to celebrate, right? Then we've done homes where it's just a single lady, you know, maybe all her kids are out at the house, her husband's passed, and it's just her, and we have a cup of coffee after. Yeah. So we've done it all.
So wait, Wes, I think it's important for us to talk about this because, you know, divorced couples or widowed may feel like, okay, well, wait, if it's just me in the house, I don't have the big family support.
Right.
This is for everybody.
This is for everybody.
Yeah.
This is for everybody. And you know, we mentioned it's a point of evangelization where your kids are seeing this and they bring it to their families, but it's never too late to do it, right? Your grandkids, or we mentioned your neighbors, come over and visit, and they see, it's like planting a flag that this is a Catholic house, right? And they see that. So you're evangelizing in different ways.
We attended a home enthronement for family, three or four families got together and did it together in their neighborhood.
Yeah, it's great.
And it was a huge celebration. And it was so beautiful because they were, like you say, planting the flag. This is who our family is. We serve Jesus. And they had their community with their neighbors. It was beautiful.
That's beautiful. I could tell you so many cool stories. We did a double in New Orleans, two brothers that lived together, did one side and then processed to the other side and did that one. It was great, you know.
So you can enthrone apartments?
Anything.
Condos?
Yeah.
RVs?
Why not?
This is awesome. So, okay, let's go. I want to hear more of the promises. Again, this is motivation, obviously, from everything you said so far. I'm like, why haven't I done this before? Like, I'm thinking to myself, like, we moved in the house in 2021. We've done the house blessing, but I want to do this enthronement. Like, I want these promises.
Yeah, because there's a prayer of renewal that you put on your altar, and you can renew that daily.
And I heard that we're encouraged to, like, annually have our house blessed. I mean, that we kind of see that with the feast of King's Day, right, where we put on the chalk on the post of the door or whatever. Okay, so I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No.
Promises.
No, with the promises. So there's those are probably the two that I get. You know, we kind of have some stories to share, but I think the one that's the most straightforward is number 9. I will bless the homes in which my image of the Sacred Heart shall be exposed and honored. And that's really the basic promise that we're basically accomplishing here. You mentioned old tradition, etc. This is, when you're done with the enthronement, this certificate is, you know, signed by all those present, and this hasn't changed since Father Mateo started it.
Wow.
So I've noticed these images you have in the back. They're kind of old school images. I can't tell you how many houses me and my wife have gone to, and they've used like their grandparents' image.
Yes.
And I'm like, let me see something. We turn it over, and this is on the back.
Really?
From like the 50s,
wow,
the 40s, and they didn't realize that image was used in a home enthronement years ago.
Okay, Wes, but if I had my Bible right in front of me, I would say this is so scriptural, because there are so many times in Scripture where God promises, you know, if we love Him, we keep His commandments, it will bless the future generations.
Right.
It's passed from one generation to the next.
Right.
This is probably one of the most important things that we can do to pass on the faith.
Yeah, I think so. I think we're seeing the fruits of it with these families that have done it. I feel like the timeliness is important. You know, we're getting to a point in the world where fatherhood is you know, just bashed.
Completely under attack.
The leadership, the masculinity, in the family. You know, I mean, if I want to destroy the earth and I'm the devil, I'm going after the family first. And so this is like the armor that we need to put on. You know,
it's that protection that we need. It's that place of peace that our homes are meant to be, so that we can have that rest.
Correct.
So that we can then enter into the world with that strength that we need to be able to carry out the work of the evangelist, to be able to carry out the work of love that we're called to.
And Wes, in addition to the Sacred Heart of Jesus, let's talk about the Immaculate Heart of Mary, the Queen of the Home.
Yeah, so I love how Father Mateo has a special place in this blessing. Mm-hmm. It starts initially when you have the initial meeting and you tell the family, look, here's the materials, we're going to leave this with you, start your novena whenever you're comfortable, but we're going to leave a Pilgrim Mary with you. And so we have, some of the teams have statues, some of them have framed pictures, and Mary, who always leads folks to her son, stays there for the novena while the family's praying, and when it's time to enthrone the home, and we do a little procession to the altar with the Bible, the rosary, whatever it is you want on your altar.
Yeah. Your weapons.
Your weapons. We ask that, you know, you have some image of the Blessed Mother, and now you put the image of the Blessed Mother on there, and you give us our Pilgrim Mary, and we bring it to the next home. So the idea is that Mary, we have one image of Mary that's been in probably 40 homes.
Wow.
And it's just very special. And then so we do in the blessing, in the ceremony, is a consecration to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. Yeah, it's beautiful.
I mean,
I know.
Let's go.
Yeah, exactly. So again, coming back to like, what are some questions that you've had? Any hesitation when you talk about this to people? Like people are like, well, tell me more. Like, what are they skeptical about? Like, what's the difficulty? Why are we not all doing this right now?
Time.
Yeah.
Time is just, I feel like, the biggest culprit in all this, and effort. When you have 2 devout Catholics ready to go, it's easy peasy. Yeah. 2 parents. When you don't, it's tough.
Well, and that leads to a good question. Like, what if you've got one spouse who is really, really on fire for their faith, and then another one who isn't, or doesn't go to Mass, or...
It happens.
So how do you encourage them?
So, recently we've had a couple just that had that exact story, and it was, leave Pilgrim Mary there, you pray, we'll pray, and hopefully when they come around, which in this particular case they did, we'll schedule a home enthronement, and we'll be good. Take your time. Don't push it. Don't rush it. We want them to be in, you know. Kids are the same way too.
I think that's a great point, because we need to have more confidence in what the Lord is doing in the sacrament of marriage and in the home. That God is very active, and to not try to force, but to take those trustful steps in that right direction. I remember in 1 Corinthians chapter 7, St. Paul is talking about, like, well, what happens if you have a believing spouse and an unbelieving spouse? What should you do? And St. Paul says, well, if the unbelieving spouse is willing to go on living with the believing spouse, they shouldn't separate. And he's like, well, then why? He says, because the believing spouse sanctifies the unbelieving spouse. And in one translation, it says the believing spouse makes holy. In another translation I saw, the believing spouse consecrates the unbelieving spouse.
Oh, I like that, yeah.
So you have this grace.
There's hope there.
Exactly. So there's hope that, like, I know that, like, I see that when people come on married couples retreat, many times I know that there are people that were dragged there. There was, begged, bartered, and whatever to get their spouse to that retreat. And it's a lot of times, it's the person that was dragged there that I see the most fruit come from the weekend. Wow. Like, I see them, like, and they'll be honest. They're like, yeah, I was dragged here. I didn't want to be here at all, but I'm so glad we came. And I feel like that I would love to encourage spouses, if they are dealing with challenge like that, where they feel like they're not appreciated, their faith is not understood, they don't feel that validation in the home, to continue to trust in the Lord. Like you said, just take the steps and see how the Lord can work in that trustful walk, leaning into His promise, His graces, and letting Him be the King.
Amen.
Let's talk for a minute about the First Friday, First Saturday devotion. How does this fit in?
Yeah. So the First Friday, First Saturday, this is a devotion that, we're talking about those lukewarm folks. I'm like, look, it's not necessary, to follow this devotion, to have your home enthroned. But once you have this home enthroned, you're going to feel this pull, right? And we always put it in the packet here. It's basically you go to confession, and then you receive communion on the first Friday for 8 consecutive Fridays. 9 consecutive Fridays. What I'm seeing, the 8 is to go to confession may be made at any time during the 8 days before or after the first Friday.
Right.
Yeah. So this devotion it's tough to do, again, with time. But man, it is such a rewarding.
It's a friend of mine said, Chris O'Neill, he said, he's been on the show before. He said, what you spend time looking at, or what you spend time with, gets richer, right? So like, if I spend time investing on, like, social media, they're going to get richer. The advertisers are going to get paid, right? If I spend time, just a little bit more time, like, looking at how I can grow in my faith, Like there's so many beautiful opportunities out there that we can step into these graces. And I think about the protection that we receive. I mean, even there's that story of in World War II when the bombs were dropped, and I forgot it was either Nagasaki or Hiroshima, but there were these priests that had the devotion to it was Our Lady of Fatima, which was the devotion, I think the Saturdays, and they were the rosaries, and they were doing all that, and these priests were completely protected from the bomb, and they were like blocks away from ground zero. It's an incredible story, but again, this idea of like maybe we won't be protected from like the physical, but like for sure the spiritual. You know, there's going to be times where there's going to be storms and trees are going to fall down and whatnot, but that wasn't because we weren't praying. But I think that the truth is that we have a spiritual power that's at play that the Lord is inviting us into, but He allows us to say yes or to say no. And I hope we say yes to this.
We hope a lot of people say yes to this. And Wes, we've been referencing this package. So if somebody wants more information, you can go to the sacredheartapostolate.com and get more information, and then you can find out where you can go, how you can get somebody to come to your home to help enthrone, right?
Yep.
How many homes have you and your wife enthroned? Your team?
I haven't counted in a while. I know it's definitely in that 40, 50 area, maybe more. The entire parish of Mandeville is more. But
what have you seen? I know we're about to wrap up, but like you and your wife doing this together, seeing these families enthroning their homes, like what has that been for you? What's that been like for you?
It's been, we have 4 kids. I got 3 kids in travel baseball.
Yes.
And I got all 3 of them are playing both football and travel. And it's like, how in the world are we going to find time? But God finds time.
Yeah.
And it is just such a rewarding thing to complete this ceremony and watch what happens to these families after their home is enthroned.
Praise God.
Yeah.
I mean, God finds the time, and I know we're coming up against the end of our show, but I need you to share, what do you do at Mater Dolorosa? What is it, for the Feast of Corpus Christi?
Oh yeah, so
that's important.
We call everyone whose homes have been enthroned, and we say, look, we're going to do a procession around church. Bring your image, and they actually process in the beginning of Mass. We put all the images under the Sacred Heart of Jesus.
Yeah.
And then at the end of Mass, we gather the images and we process around the church with the choir, the Bolgachin. It's beautiful. And
I'm calling my pastor today. We're doing this.
I have a meeting with my pastor in a week, so.
This is awesome. Thank you so much for your time.
Y'all.
Thank you for your yes, you and your wife doing this together. That has got to be a great witness for our community and for many people. But again, God bless you. Thank you so much. And I can't wait to do this.
It's going to be awesome. Yeah. Thank you, Wes.
Thank you.
That's all the time we have. Thank you so much for being with us. If you'd like to learn more, again, go to sacredheartapostolate.com.
And that is our show for today. If you'd like to watch any of our previous episodes, you can go to our YouTube channel. And while you're there, don't forget to subscribe. Oh, and lastly, if you have any questions or comments, please let us know. We'd love to hear from you.
Thanks for watching. Until next time, God bless.